Welcome to the Note Nuggets podcast, where you can learn how to become the bank, build wealth, and accumulate streams of income perfect for your savings or IRAs. You'll hear from industry experts, seasoned veterans, and everyday investors. Our goal is to teach you how to invest in notes, one nugget of knowledge at a time. Here's your host, Kevin Galang.
Welcome everyone to another episode of the Note Nuggets podcast, where you learn how to turn other people's debt into income for your savings or IRA. I grew up being told that your primary residence is the greatest asset you'll ever own. Well, as I've become more financially literate, I've learned that that is not true at all. In fact, your primary residence is more of a liability than an asset. That is, until you use the equity you've built up over the years to buy another asset that's paying you money. You could create a spread on your money, just like the banks do, by buying an asset that makes a greater return than the interest on the home equity loan you just took out. This is usually called a home equity line of credit, or HELOC for short. HELOCs fit nicely into a discussion about second position mortgages, which is why I brought on an asset manager with tons of experience managing performing and non-performing seconds to help us learn how they compare to each other. But first, let's learn about our guest. Bill McCafferty is a full-time asset manager for People's Mortgage Relief 2, LLC, also known as PMR2. Bill's true skill is building and managing portfolios of rate-performing and non-performing second mortgage notes. Bill has managed well over 1,000 reperforming and non-performing second mortgages, and his preferred exit strategy is to help homeowners keep their house. You can reach Bill at mortgagepayhelp@gmail.com. You mentioned HELOC versus a home equity line of credit versus a fixed mortgage. Can you explain a little bit more what that difference is?
Yeah, absolutely. Now, as an investor, it doesn't matter, in my opinion, when I'm buying distressed debt. But to be clear on what they are, a fixed rate mortgage is a mortgage that you agree to. It has a fixed interest rate. It has fixed years on it. So it could be, a 20-year second mortgage at 7%. And whatever that monthly payment is, you're paying a principal and interest payment every single month back to the lender. So after 20 years, that mortgage is paid in full.
Right.
The monthly payment would never change on that fixed rate second mortgage. Now, on a home equity line of credit, they're also called equity lines, equity line reserves. Basically, that is more of a checkbook type mortgage. A lender would say, hey, we're giving you a home equity line of credit for $50,000. Here's a checkbook. As you start withdrawing money on it, your payments are going to kick in. Your payments are going to be interest only on the amount of money that you pull out. Could be for a 5 or 10 year period. And then after 5 or 10 years, which is what's called the draw period, your draw period ends. And when your draw period ends, whatever amount you have out of that $50,000 is going to term out. And when it terms out, it becomes a fixed rate or maybe even an adjustable rate. And you have to start paying that back monthly. So the difference is how you access it. One's a fixed rate and one's a line of credit. And the line of credit, you can kind of write checks out as you need stuff. So that's really the biggest difference, in my opinion.
I didn't know that. And I'm glad that I asked that because I've learned something new. It's almost, I guess the analogy I could use for a HELOC would be like a checkbook IRA where you have that checkbook ability. It's not an exact analogy, but for the concept of being able to take money out.
Absolutely.
Now, why would, to backtrack, excuse me. If I understand you correctly, for a second position mortgage, you have to have equity in your property to have a second position. Is that a correct understanding?
It is, to kind of go back to the market crash of 07, 08, a lot of the second mortgages leading up to that point, lenders lent out both a first and a second mortgage to a homeowner to actually buy the property. So that first position mortgage was 80% of the loan value, and then the 20% was the other part of the combined loan to value. The 80-20 made the 100% purchase price. People purchased these. Now, like myself, in 2006, I took a line of credit out of my house. And, how I was able to do that is, I had a first position mortgage. Let's just say the balance was like $150,000 and my house was worth $230,000. So I had $80,000 of equity in my property.
Right.
Went to a lender, filled out an application to take out a $50,000 line of credit. Just like any mortgage or anything that you take out, it goes through underwriting and they approve it. Now, they would not have approved that $50,000 line of credit if I had no equity in my property.
Very much so.
Because I have equity, they lent me the $50,000. They still felt comfortable. House was worth $230,000. First position mortgage $150,000. They lent me $50,000. Now I'm in a house at $200,000 that's worth $230,000. So that is how you're able to access a line of credit with equity in your property, which is, just a little different than a fixed rate second mortgage. Seems like a lot.
Sorry, go ahead.
Nah, it just seems like a lot of these second rate fixed mortgages were more of what I told you with the 80-20, where they took out two mortgages to buy the actual property. And everything after that have seemed a lot more lines of credit.
Yeah.
With people taking out lines of credit with the equity on their property.
And that's how HELOCs and second position mortgages compare to each other. The great news is that you can buy both as a note investor. If you want to learn more about second position mortgages, head over to notenuggets.com/HELOC and sign up for full access to my interview with Bill. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of the Note Nuggets podcast. Be sure to subscribe to the show to get access to additional weekly value nuggets and get notified with episode updates. To subscribe, all you have to do is head over to subscribe.notenuggets.com. If you have any questions about this episode or note investing, book a time on Kevin's calendar at contact.notenuggets.com. We'll see you next week with another note nugget to add to your tool belt.